President Obama was all fired up on Labor Day, talking about immigration and the minimum wage, but he has since fallen back to sleep. We'll talk about that. Another beheading video was released. Obama's arch nemesis has made another appearance. The James Bond villain wannabe. He just bored Obama right back into his lethargic state with his threats. I mean, it just took the wind right out of his sails. Wait till you hear that. We'll talk about that too. How you doing out there, folks? This is The Ray Warner Show. I am your host, Ray Warner. If you want to email me, you can do that at theraywarnershow@gmail.com. President Obama gave a speech on Labor Day, and he was on fire. He was focused. He was passionate. He was engaged. He was everything we want a president to be. Too bad he was off topic. The next day, the Islamic State murdered Stephen Joel Sotloff. And our thoughts and prayers here at the Ray Warner Show go out to his family and friends. And his murderer appeared to be the same coward who murdered James Foley just 2 weeks ago. President Obama then spoke about Sotloff's murder and the Islamists, and talk about lifeless. I want you to hear the two Barack Obamas. I want you to hear the difference between the Barack Obama who is just on fire talking about failed liberal policies that he wants to force on Americans, and the Barack Obama who you would have to poke to be sure he is still alive, talking about things that have to do with ho-hum, national security and defending America, things that are actually his job, actually the job of the executive branch. Listen to the two Barack Obamas.
Whatever these murderers think they'll achieve by killing innocent Americans like Stephen, they have already failed.
Hope's what gives young people the strength to march for women's rights and workers' rights and civil rights.
They failed because, like people around the world, Americans are repulsed by their barbarism.
And voting rights, and gay rights, and immigration rights.
We will not be intimidated.
Let's embrace some economic patriotism.
Their horrific acts only unite us.
We rise or fall together as one nation.
As a country, and stiffen our resolve to take the fight against these terrorists.
And affordable health insurance.
And those who make the mistake of harming Americans will learn that we will not forget.
And decent retirement benefits.
Justice will be served.
I'm not asking for the moon. I just want a good deal for American workers.
What a difference, huh? What a difference a topic makes. As long as he is talking about something stupid, he's passionate. He's engaged, on fire. But talking about national security, he's like bored, doesn't want to talk about it, doesn't want to be there. Why are you asking me this? Can I go golfing now? Now, of course, one was a speech to a crowd packed with his union buddies, while the other was a press conference, so he would be speaking differently. You would expect him to be somewhat more reserved and have some decorum, in a meeting like that, and of course be less inhibited when delivering a speech to his union buddies. He knows that's who, gives him the time of day. The rest of the country, and the world for that matter, just can't stand him. It shouldn't be too different, the way the media fawns all over him, but even given the difference in forum, you can clearly hear the difference in his level of passion, just, in the subject matter. I wish he would talk about confronting and defeating the Islamic threat, the way he talks about something stupid like the minimum wage, for crying out loud. But no, he doesn't ever seem to want to do the right thing when it comes to Islamic terror. He wants to take a back seat to Egypt in the Hamas-Israeli conflict. The only action he's taken there is to stop shipping ammunition and other supplies to Israel. Boko Haram kidnaps a bunch of Christian girls. Remember that? Whatever happened to that? Does anybody know? I mean, as far as I know, they're still out there. Last I heard, Obama sent 40 people there to look for them or something, and another 40 to protect them. And of course, Michelle put out the hashtag, oh yeah, we're being intimidating now. This Islamic State, this is more than a bunch of nutjob ragheads running around hating people. They are more organized, more trained, more funded. and far more adamant than any Islamic threat we have faced so far. They are promising to attack us here in America. They have publicly on video murdered these two journalists, and they've murdered a lot more than just these two. But Foley and Sotloff were not just murdered, they were statements. They were used for political propaganda. The world had to see them being used in messages to America. Early in the week, Obama made the announcement to the world that he was incompetent, that after 6 years of being the President of the United States, that he had no strategy for dealing with Islamic terrorists. Then, in the days that followed, he backpedaled with the help of the media. Listen to this airhead, Ann Compton, ask Barack I a question.
Now that you say a second American has been slain, what is your response? Will airstrikes continue inside Iraq? Might they expand into Syria? Will you have a full strategy now on ISIS, which will satisfy those like Prime Minister Cameron, who call it an imminent threat to all the interests? And will it satisfy some of your supporters like Senator Feinstein, who fears that on this you may have been too cautious?
What kind of stupid question is that? Mr. President, is what you're about to say going to satisfy Senator Feinstein? How is he supposed to answer that? How is anyone supposed to answer whether or not what they have to say is going to satisfy someone else? And she asked, since a second American was killed, will we now have a full strategy on ISIS? She must not have seen the other day when he said he had no strategy. He didn't say his strategy was incomplete, that it wasn't full. He said he didn't have one. So she tosses him this softball question, let me translate her. This is what she was saying. Mr. President, only a complete idiot would admit to the world that he has no idea what he's doing. I'm going to assume that that's not true, and that you just needed another American to be beheaded before you got serious about telling us your full strategy. That's basically what she's trying to say. You can tell. Her question was designed and asked in such a way so as to generate some kind of soundbite for the media to be able to use from Obama, so that they can lay to rest this whole, gaffe about the fact that he has no strategy. Then she basically asked if he was going to bomb ISIS in Syria or just keep bombing Iraq, and would the full strategy satisfy his critics. Here is his answer to her dumb questions.
Our objective is clear, and that is to degrade and destroy ISIL so that it's no longer a threat, not just to Iraq, but also to the region and to the United States.
So now we have two brand new words to describe what he wants to do: degrade and destroy. But he didn't leave it at that. He said degrade and destroy ISIL so that it is no longer a threat. Well, that's not good enough, Mr. President. I want the Islamic threat eradicated. Remember when he called it a cancer? You eradicate cancer. It needs to be gone. Sometimes you have to cut it out. No matter how you do it, cancer needs to be gone, Mr. President. Eliminated. Once and for all. Not to return. That's what I want. But he went on.
In order for us to accomplish that, the first phase has been to make sure we've got an Iraqi government that's in place and that we are blunting the momentum that ISIL was carrying out. And the airstrikes have done that.
Now, to me, this is awfully slick. He said step one has been to make sure an Iraqi government is in place. Excuse me, Mr. President, but you didn't build that. He spoke of it in the past tense. Did you catch that? And why shouldn't he? It was President George Bush that did that. It was under Bush that Iraq was freed from Saddam Hussein and then elected its own government. I noticed he forgot to give Bush the credit for phase one. Then he added, slowing down ISIS to phase like that's been the plan all along. No, Barack I, Iraq was won. Nothing more was necessary until you, for political purposes, pulled out of Iraq prematurely. It's because of your actions that we need any more phases at all. So even though he was against it at the time, he includes an achievement of his predecessor, George Bush, as if he had anything to do with it. Of course, he has no problem just riding around on Bush's coattails, in this debacle. He concludes his comments about phase one by saying, and the airstrikes have done that. as if all of phase one is finished, thanks to him. Awfully slick, isn't it?
But now, what we need to do is make sure that we've got the regional strategy in place that can support an ongoing effort, not just in the air, but on the ground, to move that forward.
So he's done talking about Bush's accomplishments. Now he's on his own. And as you heard, he's got nothing. Now we need to make sure we have the regional strategy in place, in the air and on the ground, to move that forward. That's his phase two. Absolutely nothing specific. Just like filler talk. Something to just sound like he's on top of it when the truth has already been revealed. He has no strategy. He has no idea what he's doing. And on top of that, if it's not harmful to the economy, like amnesty or the minimum wage or something stupid, he's just not interested. It's amazing how far out of his element he is. This man-child is in so far over his head. I mean, if it wasn't so tragic, it would be funny. But it's not. This is the man we are all depending on to keep us safe from the next 9/11. The Islamic State is better organized, better funded, better trained than Al-Qaeda ever was. And this fool is who we are all depending on. Now, how scary is that? Think about that.
Last week, when this question was asked, I was specifically referring to the possibility of the military strategy inside of Syria that might require congressional approval.
This is Obama desperately trying to put Ann Compton's mind at ease. He's trying to reiterate what he said last time about having no strategy. He didn't like that everyone saw how incompetent he is. So he's pretending. We're all just taking him out of context or something. But you heard Obama himself describe phase two. We need a strategy in place to move it forward. He didn't describe the strategy. He didn't define what it was. I mean, all we know is that it needs to move forward. Nothing. So nothing has changed. He's still incompetent, and he still has no strategy.
It is very important from my perspective that when we send our pilots in to do a job, that we know that this is a mission that's going to work, that we're very clear on what our objectives are, what our targets are. We've made the case to Congress, and we've made the case to the American people, and we've got allies behind us so that it's not just a one-off, but it's something that over time is going to be effective.
President Obama, the mission is clear. The target is Islam. The objective is annihilation. He's talking about bringing the case to Congress and to the American people. Congress has been bringing the case to you, Barack the First. The American people have been bringing the case to you. What are you waiting for? How many more Americans need to be beheaded before you do something about it? We're all on the edge of our seat, Mr. President, waiting for you to act.
So the bottom line is this, Ann. It's not only that we're going to be bringing to justice those who perpetrated this terrible crime against these two fine young men. More broadly, the United States will continue to lead a regional and international effort against the kind of barbaric and ultimately empty vision that ISIL represents.
I love it when he gives us the bottom line. Now, when he says the United States will continue to lead, remember, he means lead from behind. Yeah, he's so tough. Does anyone believe this? Does anyone believe that Barack Obama, who has the common sense of a doorknob when it comes to national security, is really going to get tough on Islamic terror? If these Islamic animals threaten to come to America and vote Republican, then you would see Obama's full, all-out wrath and indignation poured out on him. But, even after his admission that he has no idea what he's doing, even after his attempt to walk that back, just by, he's in this answer, he's throwing in the word strategy. I guess he figures he's fixing that gaffe. But, none of that matters. After all of that explanation, since he really didn't say anything, Compton was still confused. Listen to this.
Did you just say that the strategy is to destroy ISIS or to simply contain them or push them back?
Is that not hilarious? He just spent all of that time spewing forth his quote-unquote strategy, and she comes back with, so did you say you're going to destroy, contain, or push back ISIS? She has no idea what he said either, and that's because he didn't say anything definitive. He's almost upset that he has to explain it again. Listen to this.
Our objective is to make sure that ISIL is not an ongoing threat to the region. And we can accomplish that. It's going to take some time and it's going to take some effort.
Well, there's your answer, Ann. Are you going to destroy, contain, or push back? Obama's answer, none of the above. Our objective is to make sure ISIS is no longer a threat to the region. Well, what in Sam Hill does that mean, Mr. President? Destroy, contain, or push back? What? What are you going to do?
As we've seen with Al-Qaeda, there are always going to be remnants that can cause havoc of any of these networks, in part because of the nature of terrorist activities. You get a few individuals and they may be able to carry out a terrorist act. But what we can do is to make sure that the kind of systemic and broad-based aggression that we've seen out of ISIL that terrorizes primarily Muslims, Shia, Sunni, terrorizes Kurds, terrorizes not just Iraqis, but people throughout the region, that is degraded to the point where it is no longer the kind of factor that we've seen it being over the last several months.
Oh, so that's what you're going to do. He's going to make sure that it's degraded. Okay, all clear, Barack the First. I got it. See, folks, no strategy. He still has no idea what he's doing. He has no idea what to do. I'm Ray Warner. Stay right there.
There's plenty of free parking at the Ray Warner Show.
Israel, a nation born of liberty, freedom, and hope. America's unwavering friend. Israel is now fighting for its survival against an enemy who thinks nothing of sacrificing Palestinian women and children as human shields.
Hamas is using its own children as human shields.
A nearby mosque is boasting about rockets being fired at Jerusalem, at Tel Aviv, at Haifa.
It's hard to comprehend, but it's true. As Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said, here's the difference. We're using missile defense to protect our civilians, and they're using their civilians to protect their missiles. Hamas thinks nothing of killing innocent Israelis and Americans. Hamas took billions in humanitarian aid meant for schools and hospitals and used the money for the tools of war, terror tunnels, and weapons. Stand up to this outrage. Make your voice heard. Visit StopHamasNow.com and sign our petition.
Shocking news. 666, the mark of the beast, and the NIV. God said, mansaid.com.
Bible rewires addicts' brains. Geologists floored by water rock. God said, mansaid.com.
Dinosaurs and man contemporaneously. Hours of text and audio. God said, mansaid.com.
Radiometric dating and a 6,000-year-old Earth. Honey and the finger of God. Free love's deadly superbug. God said, mansaid.com.
Welcome back, friends. This is Ray Warner on The Ray Warner Show. If you want to email me, the email address is theraywarnershow@gmail.com. So, there you heard President Obama. He wants to take a back seat and wants to let the rest of the world handle it. He is probably under the impression that through what amounts to some kind of UN sanctions, Islamists are going to just stop cutting people's heads off. Then he came out with yet another description of what he wants to do.
We know that if we are joined by the international community, we can continue to shrink ISIL's sphere of influence, its effectiveness, its financing, its military capabilities, to the point where it is a manageable problem.
Obama wants to manage the Islamic threat. He wants to manage Islamic terror. He wants to manage the Islamic State. President Obama, why don't you focus on managing your own job? You know, President of the United States, that's a full-time job. He's destroying healthcare. He's destroying the economy. He is destroying America's image and position in the world. But he is going to manage the Islamic threat. You know, I often wonder if this fool thinks he is saying something with some kind of substance. He wants to shrink Islamic terror down to what he called a manageable problem. You know, I've said this before. I think he tries to find the most inappropriate way to describe something. How else do you explain that? How else can you explain an American president, any American for that matter, referring to Islamic terror as a quote-unquote problem? Referring to exterminating Christians as a problem. Referring to beheadings as a problem. Referring to Islamic threats against our homeland as a problem. And then after calling it a problem, you state that your goal is to manage it, not solve the problem, not eliminate the problem. He's content to somehow coexist with the Islamic threat. You know, someone needs to tell him he is President of the United States of America. Solving problems is what we do here, sir. And he would say, well, that's awfully arrogant. Well, you know what? America has moral high ground. We had it in World War I. We had it in World War II. America has always had the moral high ground. Against Hirohito, against Hitler, in the Cold War. President Ronald Reagan defined the Soviet Union as an evil empire. And it was. The Islamic threat is the newest evil we face. It is the face of evil in our time, Mr. President. America, leading from a position of strength, has always kept evil in check. This president, President Obama, is the anomaly. He wants to lead from behind. He wants to let other nations take the lead in solving global crises. Nations that don't have the moral high ground. He doesn't care. And if you ask Obama, he would say America does not have moral high ground, probably because of slavery. You know, it doesn't matter that we went to war with ourselves to abolish it. More Americans died in that war than all others combined. America is a different nation. In a long line of kingdoms, empires, and conquering, America stands out as something different. We don't conquer. We liberate. We free those who would be ruled by a tyrant dictator with an iron fist. We didn't take oil from Iraq. After we defeated Japan and Germany, we rebuilt them. After we defeated Mexico, we gave them back the land. Our quests around the world have been to stop evil from spreading. Our nation is one that people have looked to and immigrated to for a better life, for freedom. And those who could not come here for freedom, we brought freedom to them. Barack Obama would rather take a back seat and let the world resolve itself. He needs to wake up before it's too late. You can't just wish for peace. You can't just manage the world the way you want it or the way you see it. You can't just confront the world the way you wish it to be or the way you think it is. You have to confront the world the way it is. You can't just speak and all the world's problems will be solved. And what good is a coalition anyway? What kind of confidence does he think our allies have now? Can anyone say Crimea? We had a treaty with Crimea. We promised to protect them. And look what happened. Because we have complete incompetence in the White House, Crimea is gone. And Ukraine is next. Vladimir Putin, I believe, wants to put the whole band back together. And he is seizing the opportunity presented by Obama's weakness to move in on places like Crimea and Ukraine. Who knows what's next? Well, here was some tough talk. Listen to Gaff Machine Biden speak out against Islamic State.
When these barbarians replicated with Stephen what they did with Foley, who is from New Hampshire, they somehow think that it's going to lessen U.S. resolve, frighten us, intimidate us. But if they think the American people will be intimidated, they don't know us very well. We came back after 9/11. We dusted ourselves off and we made sure that Osama bin Laden would never, ever again threaten the American people. We came back Boston strong, blaming no one but resolve to be certain that this didn't happen again. Today, America may be grieving, still grieving I'm Jim Foley, a native of New Hampshire, as I said, who grew up in Rochester. But the American people are so much stronger, so much more resolved than any enemy can fully understand. As a nation, we're united. And when people harm Americans, we don't retreat. We don't forget. We take care of those who are grieving. And when that's finished, they should know we will follow them to the gates of hell until they are brought to justice. Because hell is where they will reside. Hell is where they will reside.
Is that some tough talk or what? I actually like what the gaff machine had to say. Joe Biden, chase them to the gates of hell. Hell is where they will reside. Now, as much as I appreciate these words from the gaff machine, at the end of the day, that's what they are. Words. The President of the United States may be the most powerful man in the world, but what is the Vice President? You know, if we need a tie broken in the Senate, Joe, we'll call you. Otherwise, what? Does he seriously think Obama has the will to chase Islamists to the gates of hell? He's one of them, Joe. He's a Muslim sympathizer. He's on their side. He just has to pretend to care to keep his approval ratings from falling even lower than they are now, which is at, again, record lows. He doesn't care, Joe. He gets his intelligence briefing every day. He's been told about ISIS for over a year. He gets information on national security. He looks at it, shoves it aside, and says, okay, now how do we raise the minimum wage? How do I get amnesty passed? He's too focused on his real enemies, Joe, conservatives, Republicans. He's competing with Islamists to see who can actually cause more damage to America. Chase them to the gates of hell. Hell is where they will reside. What a joke. You know, as much as I appreciate what he's trying to say, don't get me wrong, if the same exact words were spoken by Ronald Reagan, if that entire soundbite was of Ronald Reagan, I would stand up and cheer. Because I know Reagan understood evil and knew it needed to be defeated. He loved the country and wanted what was best for it. I know he would do something about it, and it would be defeated. Remember Gaddafi? Remember back in the 80s? Gaddafi stood up, he was starting to act all big and bad, and what happened? Boom! Reagan shut him right up. We didn't hear from him for 20 years. That's what Ronald Reagan did. What is this fool going to do, Joe? He hates the country. He is evil. He's not going to confront evil. He is evil. Why would he combat it? Why would he confront it? Wake up, Joe. You want to do something positive? Lead the charge to get this fool removed from office. That's what you can do, Joe. Be right back. Don't go away.
I haven't lost my temper in 40 years. But Pilgrim, you caused a lot of trouble this morning. Might have got somebody killed. And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I will.
I came home last night and my door was smashed open. It's like they knew right where to go. Like they'd been in my house before. They got my cameras, the silver, the coins. My husband's beautiful old shotgun. They took my jewelry. I can't believe it. It's all gone.
Each year, more than 4 million homes are burglarized in the U.S. Keep your valuables safe and secure with a safe that gives you an extra margin of protection. A Liberty safe is built tough and offers the most technologically advanced security features available. Plus, Liberty safes are independently certified for residential security, and they're built right here in the U.S. Don't take a chance when it comes to your home security. Purchase a Liberty safe for the things you value most.
Some things can be replaced. Some just can't.
To learn more, go to libertysafe.com.
A creative experience unlike any other is waiting for you at Hobby Lobby. Arts and crafts, fabric, scrapbooking, floral, home accents, and so much more. Come and explore Hobby Lobby and find more than you could have ever imagined. Inspiration, innovation, and creation all in one place. Everything you need to bring your creativity to life is here at Hobby Lobby.
right, we are back. This is The Ray Warner Show. I am your host, Ray Warner. You can email the show. The email address is theraywarnershow@gmail.com. Did you hear Phil Robertson last week talking about the Islamic threat? Phil Robertson, if you don't know, is the patriarch on Duck Dynasty. And he went on Hannity on Fox News. He brought his Bible with him. This is really good stuff. Listen to this.
They're at war with us. Yep. Whether we like it or not, I think most people would rather live in peace. Most Americans are just leave us alone, we'll leave you alone. They're not going to leave us alone. They're not going to leave Israel alone. So that leaves us with two options. Do nothing and then get ready for the next attack, and then we'll have a report that says they were at war with us, we weren't at war with them.
In this case, you either have to convert them, which I think is would be next to impossible. I'm not giving up on them, but I'm just saying either convert them or kill them, one or the other.
Now, I know there are going to be people that are always looking to jump on you and say, convert them or kill them, and they're going to say, there goes Phil Robertson again. No, I know the media. I know how they act.
I'd much rather have a Bible study with all of them and show them the error of their ways and point them to Jesus Christ, the author and perfecter of having your sins removed and being raised from the dead. I would rather preach the gospel of Jesus to them. However, if it's a gunfight and a gunfight alone, if that's what they're looking for, me personally, I am prepared for either one.
Is that not excellent stuff? I agree 1,000% with Phil Robertson. I would much rather have a Bible study with Islamists, but, you know, that is just not what they want. They have demonstrated time and time again, they have no interest in hearing what anybody has to say. And honestly, that's fine too. I mean, if they don't want a dialogue, I am willing to live and let live. And I believe 99.9% of Americans would agree. You know, I disagree with the Buddhist religion. I don't believe it's true, but it never even crosses my mind to travel over to Asia and blow up anything because of my disagreement. This is not so with Islam. They will come to you wherever you are and kill you because you disagree. As much as I don't want a fight, if a fight is all they want, then we need to be prepared. And as Phil said, prepared for either one, the conversation or the fight. Now, as you could imagine, there was no shortage of small minds that refused to see the clear logic of Phil Robertson. This was Ed Schultz. He has a show over there on MSNBC. He was responding to Phil's remarks, and I don't know what the 12 people who watch him thought of it. This was what he had to say.
Things really went off the deep end on Hannity's show last night. Mr. Duck Dynasty, Phil Robertson, the patriarch of the family, has a genius plan to take down ISIS, convert or kill. Oh, yes, what a very innovative way to advocate for war. They're just like guys out on the street that break the law in America. Let's take them down. Let's not ask any questions. Let's just shoot first and think about it later. Convert or kill. You know, Phil Robertson, maybe you should get your grandkids to arm up and go out and get ISIS. It's absurd that Phil Robertson wants to take a page out of the ISIS playbook and use the convert or kill strategy. It's exactly what ISIS is doing throughout Syria and Iraq. And another thing, Mr. Robertson, I just wonder how many good Christian preachers you can get to back you up on that comment that maybe it's time to convert or kill.
You know, Ed, I don't think you could be more of an embarrassing buffoon if you tried. Ed is no different from any liberal who just wants to make fun of the Christian, principled, rugged individual that Phil is and has taught his family to be. Remember Barack I talking about people clinging to God and guns? Yeah, that's us, Barack. Americans, we believe in the Second Amendment, and we understand the reality of God. Notice I didn't say believe in God. I don't believe there is a God. I understand that there is a God. There's a big difference. Belief has nothing to do with it. It's just the reality that is going on around us. Phil is trusting Christ, as I am, and Ed just can't wait to make fun of it. Ed, did you hear the entire interview, or just the part your cronies played for you? Because if you heard it, then you heard Phil say he would much rather have a conversation. He would much rather have a Bible study. But if they want to fight, well, he's prepared for both. If you think Phil is slow and stupid, then tell me, how did someone slow and stupid confuse you, Ed? You are right about the ISIS playbook, though. Convert or die. Phil's desire to convert is out of love. His motivation to kill them is out of self-defense, and that's only if need be. You were really confused by that? Let me ask you a question, Ed, and even the 12 people that watch you. Phil Robertson laid down two possibilities, convert or kill them. So I ask you, if you don't like his options, what are yours? What else is there, Ed? How do you propose we deal with the Islamic threat? Get a clue, Ed. I'm going to put a link on my website to Hannity's entire interview with Phil Robertson. If you haven't seen the interview, it's really good. It's around 8 minutes or so long, and you should check it out. And that's it for this week, folks. Thank you all again so much for listening. This is The Ray Warner Show. I am your host, Ray Warner. If you want, you can email me. Please do that at theraywarnershow@gmail.com, and we'll see you next week.